Ego naam Hildimanso, ma Hollandeki Nepal ayekochu, Satyal and Silwal mego Sati haruho.
Two friends having a round of tea on Tuesday night at 7:30. Let's talk about anything that's under the sun, whether it's sad and lonely or just wanna have fun. Come on now, let's join the conversation. Come on now, let's join the conversation.
Hello listeners, you're listening to 18 Minutes with Satyal and Silwal. I'm Satyal.
I'm Silwal and we're a weekly podcast from the Himalayas.
When it's a Tuesday and it's 7:30, you know it's time for perspectives, conversations and stories.
Wonderful thing about the podcast right now is we've reduced the size of the podcast on YouTube so you can download it, listen to it wherever you're going. That's one thing. Another thing is if you want to see the exact notification, you can just click on the alert button that's on our channel. So if you do that, you can get notifications when we post our podcast. That was all the technical stuffs. So we just had to get that away with. Satya, having a podcast is very beautiful because we get to meet a lot of people, right? So just tell me who our guest is today.
Well, our guest today is someone I would probably never have met if I did not go to Nuwakot 1 month back. So we were just sitting there. I had 6-7 of my friends. They were cracking jokes in Nepali. And there was this guy who was just there, sitting there and just observing nature and just sunbathing there, right? He's like basking in the glory of beautiful nature. And our eyes met and I just said, where are you from? And then we struck a chord. Nothing like that. So he's a friend. And the best part of doing a podcast is you get to meet a lot of friends. And so introducing our guest for today is someone who has come all the way from Holland. Is it called Holland or Netherlands? Holland. He's come all the way from Holland to do his internship in Nepal. And he is Heel Beemans. Woo! Did I get that name right?
You did.
All right.
I know it's very difficult to pronounce for foreigners, but yeah. I've been called so many names already, so I respond to anything right now.
I find it very difficult, so I'm just going to say Hill.
Here, right?
Very good.
So you were there in Nuwakot and we met and now we're here doing the podcast. So that's an amazing thing.
Yeah, nice come together of circumstances, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So because you guys have met each other in Nuwakot, this is the first time I'm meeting you. Mm-hmm. How have you come to Nepal and what are you doing in Nepal?
Okay, so I'm an international business student in Holland, and the criteria of my school is that we have to go abroad twice. So I went to Costa Rica once, I went to Finland once, and now I could stay in Holland, but I was applying for companies in Holland. Companies didn't sympathize with, companies that produced paints, that produced whatever. And then I remembered this saying I read somewhere, one of those inspirational quotes, like, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. Mm-hmm. And I'm an aspiring mountaineer, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna look for something that has something to do with the mountains. First thing that popped up was Nepal, and I just sent an open application to this trekking agency, and they replied within hours, like, hey, Gil, so happy to have you, saw your resume, we want to set up an interview, a meeting, and yeah, that's it all took its course, and that's how I ended up here.
All right, so you've been here for 6 months?
I'm going to be here for 5 months totally,
okay.
So I got a couple more weeks to go now.
All right, so how has this experience been so far for you? Working in Nepal, because we see a lot of people wanting to get out of Nepal, but you've actually come here to work. So how is that dynamic like?
Professionally,
yeah,
it's a lot different than Holland. A lot of things that I take away, or that I notice that are very different, is in daily life as well as professional life, is the short-term thinking.
Mm-hmm. Why are you doing the podcast? You don't make money out of it. Is one, yeah.
Yeah, you don't make immediate money out of it, so might as well not do it, right? And the whole feedback thing. So we are very keen on feedback. If you've done something, you want feedback on it. Mm-hmm. Here, it's more perceived as critique. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, you ask for feedback, and it's like, no, everything's fine, and then another time it's like, hey, you need to do this and that better, and then it all comes over you at once.
Mm-hmm.
So we have whole integrated feedback systems. We have word templates where you can grade each other, and that's respected. That's what you do, but you don't really do that much here.
Mm-hmm.
And then about the long term thinking, well, like we just said, as long as it doesn't make money.
Because we're perceived as very lazy people, and we have a Nepali time.
Mhm.
Have you had that where someone calls you up at 8 a.m. but it's like
They show up at 9:30?
I've had that, obviously. I've had people like, let's go to a bar tonight, and then just coming up like, I might come. Never really giving
Definite yes or no.
never like, I'm gonna be there, I'm not gonna be there. If they just say like, I'm not gonna be there, that's fine. But I've waited in the bar for a while, and so it's things like that, not even showing up. Or for example, I had to go to the hospital once, and there were people like asked for directions because you don't really work with addresses. So I tried to navigate to the nearest landmark, and then there were these people like, hey, where's the hospital? This and that hospital. They had no idea where I was, but they sent me somewhere anyway. They rather send you somewhere and then it could be completely wrong than tell you, hey, I don't know where it is, go find something else.
That's a very keen observation. You Nepalese people, they don't want to say no. They don't want to say I don't know.
Exactly.
They want to try. They want to try their hands on anything, but they will not say I don't know.
And then if they say like, hey, can you be there at 9? To be a little bit more relevant, say, yeah, I'll be there at 9, even though they
know that
no way they're gonna be there.
A lot of our listeners are young people who aspire to go abroad at some point in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're looking at Europe, then they're asking for trouble because it doesn't work that way there.
Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't. And I think that you notice that when you go into Europe, there are a lot of procedures you have to go through, get a visa, a Schengen agreement, you have to read into it a lot, and you may not be used to it if you are a Nepali person. But I would strongly encourage you to do so anyway, because it's well worth it to see. For me, it was well worth coming here, and professionally, it's not the biggest challenge, but culturally, I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about myself and human nature, and how blessed we are at home.
Mm-hmm.
Having warm water all day long, central heating, the things you take for granted at home. And I wouldn't encourage Nepali people to go there because life is better there. I would encourage you to learn from each other.
Okay. Culturally, you talked about, I'm sure you must have had cultural shocks. Apart from professional
Still do.
setting, talk us through a few of your experiences where cultural shocks happen.
So the cultural shocks, well, I wouldn't say work both way, but they are equally shocked by me driving my bicycle through Kathmandu with my mouth mask, and well, the listeners can't see it, but I have blue eyes, so they can see me like foreigner, white skin, pasty white skin, blue eyes, and most recently, so these stories, I'm gonna give you an example, but these stories happen like 5 times a week at least. So yesterday I was saying goodbye to my bike because our stream of traffic was flowing, and I thought I'm gonna make that crossroad, but then they stopped immediately right in front of my nose, and I was in front of the line, and sure, I'll stop. And the guy, the traffic agent, looked me in the eye, and he came up to me and he said, "Where do you need to go?" I said, "I need to go up that hill to Lazimpat." He said, "To Tamil." I was like, "Sure, to Tamil." "Where are you coming from?" "Coming from Naya Bazaar." And he said, "Where are you from?" "I'm from Holland." And then I thought he was engaging in small talk or something. So you're Nepali? He said, "Yeah." And he walked away, and he wasn't interested in small talk. He just wanted to know where I had to go, so he stopped that other line, and we just went. Usually you have to wait for 15 minutes, but he let our line of traffic go, and saved me a lot of time there. So these things happen on a regular basis. If you're not in Tamil, if you're I live in Lowland Heights, Goldunga. A lot of people look at you weirdly for living there. You're white. Why would you come here? Why would you live here? And so a lot of things. people that I just met, hey, can we be friends on Facebook? Hey, can I have your phone number? Which is, in the beginning, that was quite shocking, but once it happens more and more, you're kind of getting used to it.
So, Hill, that's
Yes.
how I'm
Yeah.
pronouncing your name.
Of course, yeah, go crazy.
You said you're an aspiring mountaineer, and that's why one of the reasons you came here was to see the work here. What are your takeaways in the sense that what have you learned the most when you've been in Nepal about mountaineering and all these things, and what are you taking back home, and what do you plan on doing with it?
So the mountaineering here is a lot different than back home. Back home, you take a gondola, you go up in the mountains, you go walking there. So that's actual mountaineering. Here I went more trekking, so spending hours, days in the mountains. What do I take away from it? That's a whole process, a lot of planning, but it's also a lot of experience. So like I'm not an aspiring guide or something. I just love being in the mountains, and I think it's crazy that we have mountains or something as pretty in the world, and something where you can just wander off in, and it's so remote. And
If you were not here for 5 months, if you decided not to come to Nepal, what things would you probably have missed out on?
An eye-opener, in the sense that we think very structured. We are one of the most bureaucratic countries in the world. We think in structures and procedures and rules, and there's a certain margin, but you don't really wander off from the path that you're prescribed too much.
Mm-hmm.
Here, it's kind of you work with it as you go. You
Go with the flow. That's
you
what
go with the flow, yeah. And I found it very, like I said, there's not much long-term thinking here, but on a moment's notice, everything can change, and in a week's notice, it can be completely different. Your whole career path can be changed. So it's really difficult to set long-term goals here, I have to say. So what I take away from it is that don't think as much in structure and procedures, but for Nepali people, I would say have a little bit more structure, set a long-term goal, and keep that in mind every once in a while if you do something.
Mm-hmm.
So, Hill, again, you're going back in a few weeks now.
Weeks, yeah.
What does Nepal mean to you now? Now that you've finished your internship here, how is Nepal, and what have you learned from Nepal? Not what have you learned, but what do you think of a country called Nepal now?
Well, Nepal's been my home for a couple of months. So if you stop being a tourist and actually live here, then you start making Nepali friends. And Nepali friends respect friendship a lot, respect family, and those two kind of merge into one. Family become friends, and friends become family.
Mm-hmm.
So Nepal is in that sense, the people are amazing, but Nepal, the country, certainly has its dangers for me. The fact that my immune system isn't accustomed to Nepali standards. I'm not used to some diseases that are in Nepal. I spent a couple of days in the hospital when I first came here because there was food poisoning. So in Holland, we are flat, no mountains, almost no nature. 100% of the country's people live there, is 100% inhabitable. So you kind of take that whole infrastructure, that whole gas infrastructure, that whole water infrastructure, you take it for granted. But coming here, people aren't less happy. Mm-hmm. They're equally happy as we are back home. They just work with what they have, and maybe we're spoiled in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you a little bit humble, I have to say, grateful for what we have.
So
I know that sounds very cheesy. I know. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be. But yeah.
So when you go back, what's the first thing that you're gonna do when you go back? Because what have you missed the most at home?
I'm gonna stand in a hot shower very long and get really warm to the bone.
Okay.
Out of respect, I didn't eat beef here. Like, you can get it in tourist restaurants. I didn't eat it. Didn't really miss it. Maybe I'm gonna go back and have a steak. Maybe not. Sounds, yeah. Drive a car. Yeah, we have really good roads.
We're slowly getting there. Let's not be too harsh on ourselves. Say, Sara and I want to come to Europe to study. Just a few recommendations, things that we should be wary of.
There isn't such a thing as Europe. There are good schools, there are bad schools. A lot of them are arranged. For me, I know Rotterdam has a lot of good universities. Also, depending on your level of education, of course. But there are a lot of good universities there. Scandinavia has a lot of good schools. But then once you go further south, I'm not saying that Spain and Italy have worse schools or anything. But I know that there are also schools that aren't as great, where they have the whole mañana attitude, where it's like, yeah, you wouldn't really want to go there if you're going to a strange environment. The same with the US. There's even probably a bigger differentiation in that you have really good schools. You got your Ivy Leagues, you got your Harvard, you got your Yale, but then there are also schools that are not so good. So do research before you go to a school and enjoy the country, enjoy the experience rather than your education. So have a goal going there, but don't stick to it too much.
I think Satyal said one last question. I want to add one more thing because you talked about our short-term thinking. That's what you witnessed. What's your long-term plans for yourself? Because you've done international business, right? You were in Costa Rica. You are in Nepal right now. What's next for you, and where do you see yourself, or something like that? I know it's very vague, but
yeah. So my answer is going to be pretty fake and pretty hippie as well. I think that a person's value is the accumulation of his skill set. So I think if you keep on placing yourself in scenarios where you can learn a lot, they can be culturally, so that's one of the reasons why I came here, because I know that I could learn a lot here. And then after a while, that's gonna kind of level out, and then you're gonna be in the comfort zone. You're gonna be doing things that you know you can do well, but your skill set's not gonna increase. So as long as you keep on embracing those learning experience, you're just gonna keep on finding yourself in different places, and at one point, yeah, you might settle down and go learn for a master's degree or whatever. That's something I do want to do. I want to learn I want to become a master. But until then, I'm just taking life, embracing challenges.
Going with the flow.
Oh, learn from the Nepali way.
It is to a certain extent.
All right, Yael, thank you so much for being on 18 Minutes with Satyal and Silwal. We hope you had a good time.
Sure did.
Alright, so listeners, we hope you had a lot of takeaways from his experience in Nepal. We thought it would be a new perspective, so we brought in here. We'll be back again next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. on YouTube and on SoundCloud. And one last thing.
It's never too late to start.